So I just listened to the debate between Brett Weinstein and Sam Harris about free will and determinism. And it seemed like Sam Harris thought they were really related, and Brett Weinstein didn't think they were, because he tried to get determinism out of the question first. Like, we can both agree that the world is not deterministic. And Sam Harris kind of had an issue with that. And I kind of had an issue with it too. The world could be not deterministic. But why would you say that it can't be deterministic? The thing Brett Weinstein kept saying is, well, if there is no free will, or if the universe is deterministic, then everything we're talking about has no meaning. And he said that multiple times, and I wanted to ask, what do you mean by meaning? Because what I understand meaning to mean is what action is ultimately expressed through the thought that the meaning is attached to. And so if something has meaning, then that meaning is the action that it would cause you to perform. And a lot of time when we talk about the meaning of words, we are translating to other words, but ultimately that's only because we already know the meaning of those words, which ultimately is how we would act because of the words. So to say that without or with determinism nothing would have meaning, that is equivalent to saying without or with determinism there is no action. And that is a huge, weird flaw to me, to believe that, and this is connected to the free will, that you're not really acting if you don't have free will. But believing that causes you to, I think, ignore some pretty important truths about the way the world works and the way your brain works and the way psychology works. But first, I think if you look at the definition of act, I think it's when we see something or someone and some energy or action spontaneously is initiated by them. And so the way people use language about all these things is this way. Think about DeepMind, AlphaGo. It made a move that people found crazy, counterintuitive, and beautiful. And people talked about it like it made decisions. And why wouldn't you talk about it that way? It's natural. That yes, the computer made a decision. And there is nothing about that was not deterministic. The algorithm itself was obviously deterministic because it's a calculation. The training data, at least in the next version, which was even better than the first one, all it did was play against its own, itself, that it generated, like its own games that it generated from just the rules of Go, which are deterministic. But with that algorithm that generated that deterministic data, deterministically, it produced so much data that it stored that it was able to use in a new context, and that looks like action. So everything that has memory that can spontaneously do something is a thing that to us looks like it acted. So do we have any proof that that's not how the brain works? Like, even if you're religious and you think about us having spirits, isn't there a way to interpret the scriptures and stuff in a way that everything could be deterministic? Well, I think there is, And I think that it's very possible that the world is that way. So are your brains that way? I think they are. Your consciousness is more like an observer of what happens in your head, because you have very, very, very complex neural patterns in your brain, networks that bubble up into your consciousness from your subconscious mind, that to think that you have control over that process is kind of crazy. And how do you make decisions? You do what you want to do. Why do you want to do something? If you think about your desires and where they come from, you don't know where they come from a lot of the time. If you do, it's clearly identifiable as deterministic. But like every desire you have comes from your mind. Like the obvious one is the desire to eat food. I don't think anyone would deny, like, food. Why food? Obviously that has to do with your biology, and it's your biology that's controlling what you want to do at the moment you're hungry. It cares a lot about whether you eat or not. But what people think of as higher drives, how do you know that they're not biological? Take the sense of beauty, for example. If you study beauty and what people think, what kinds of things people think are beautiful, there is a basic formula that can predict if something is beautiful, given certain inputs. And the two inputs are how compressible it is to the person who's seeing it. So if it's symmetrical, then one side is the same as the other side, so you can represent it with less data. So it's from an information standpoint compressible. So a human face, it's symmetrical, and so that is compressible. The other factor that is an input to the equation is how important or potentially valuable it is to a person. So that could include novelty, because novel things are pretty important. It's important to be seeing new things, but also things that have proven to be extremely valuable and important, relevant, very relevant, and even scary things can be beautiful. Like, is it valuable? Like, is a predator valuable? Well, it's valuable. The information about it is extremely valuable. So how important it is to you, multiplied by how compressible the information is basically what makes something beautiful. And that, like, what if you made the claim that beauty is completely outside the realm of biology and Darwinism? It is not a physical, biological property. Never mind that other animals have similar drives to beautiful things. But could you make that claim confidently? I think it'd be crazy to do that. And it's easy to imagine that a person who has a strong aesthetic sense would be drawn to great opportunities that are low-hanging fruit because of the compressible factor, the compressibility factor. It seems important, and it's also very simple. A lot is generated by a little bit. So yeah, your brain likes that, and it's a good thing because it does draw you to the right places and things a lot of the time. So I think even your highest drives, like, so let's say the drive to be a good person, or let's say to be loyal. Like, I know a lot of people who know that loyalty is very, very likely derived from biology, because it's like you have a tribe, and your fitness depends on how well you can work with the group. So it's it's pretty easy to see how loyalty could be a basic drive that arises from your brain. And I can't identify a single drive or desire that doesn't come from your brain. And so that's why I'm saying that it very well could be that our actions are determined by other things, like not our conscious minds. Like, I don't even know when I have consciously chosen to like create a new desire. Based on information and higher order desires, I can prioritize lower level desires. Like right now, I'm driving. I could pass this person in front of me, and I mean, I really want to, but there's also the idea that it's against the law, and do I want to get a ticket? Well, maybe I do. I don't care. Maybe I don't care. I don't think there's a cop around, maybe. So, but I have different desires competing. And the thing is, in the end, all your desires are competing for your action, for your output. They want to be your output. And whatever one is strongest wins. And so my main argument is I haven't been able to see a part of my brain or a desire that didn't come from, or couldn't have come from, biology. And why else? I'm a human. Look at all my surroundings. I'm a physical person. Why would there be all kinds of stuff in my head that is magically disconnected from the world? It makes no sense. So I don't see any problem with thinking that there is no free will, like as most people think of it, like this magical thing that could have not been predicted. But the thing that bugs me the most is you can bound the problem by talking about a specific occurrence where things actually were deterministic, but maybe you were lacking some information. A lot of people still tend to want to think of the situation as having been determined by people and by free will, magic agents that are completely disconnected from the influence of the environment. And that bugs me a little bit. Like, potentially there are two parts of the world: the things that happen deterministically and the things that happen randomly or indeterministically or not deterministically, whatever the word is. How big is each respective part? We know that deterministic mechanisms are not zero, or else we could not survive. There would be no point to intelligence whatsoever. There would be no value to any abstraction that we could create, because nothing could be reused, because we couldn't ever predict the value of any abstraction. They would all occur randomly. So there is some degree of determinism, at least a little bit. And so, okay, that's great. How much stuff is not deterministic? We don't know. It could be zero. And what people usually point to is quantum mechanics, because the spin of electrons, we couldn't, and this holds for like all particles, you can't predict whether it will be spin up or spin down if you apply a magnetic field that's 90 degrees to the last time it was measured or whatever. And there was like this hidden variable theorem that said maybe the electron has its own internal state. Maybe it's not random. Maybe it has its own internal state that keeps track of. And so they come up with a cool equation to be able to test that hypothesis, and it did not come out in favor of the hidden variable theorem. So no, there is no state. It really is being decided on the spot which direction it will go. And so, like, it's the same issue. We can't see it. We don't see the mechanism, And so we say it must be completely random, like new information entering existence. And I'm not saying that's false, but I'm saying it doesn't have to be true. It could be that there is some quantum coin toss. There's like because think about coin tosses. Those are random, right? No, they're not random. Flip a coin and take a video of you flipping a coin and analyze how it came off your hand, how it landed on the table, and how it got to its final resting state. Everything happened according to the laws of physics. You could have determined the outcome if you were given the constants, the physical constants for the objects involved, and the initial conditions. You could have been given all that information. You would have calculated it. Coin tosses are not. They are deterministic. So there could be that same mechanism down at the level of quantum particles. There could be some quantum coin toss down there, and we have no idea where it comes from. So for practical purposes, it's random. But and so great. I don't ultimately care. I want things to be deterministic so I can discover them and make predictions using the mechanisms. But there are a lot of people who don't want it to be deterministic, and I don't understand that. Don't you want to learn the laws that govern how things are? Like, if there are no laws that govern everything, then there is no power. There's no ultimate survival. Like, there's no prospering ultimately. There's a limit. And obviously there are temporary limits, but why do you want there to be absolute limits? I've thought about this a little bit. I think that some of the motivation comes from just wanting people to not be so overconfident all the time. But that's okay. You can be humble and not overconfident in some scenarios without saying something metaphysical about the ultimate nature of the universe. You don't need free will and determinism to say that maybe there's something about people that you don't understand, and so you shouldn't treat them like robots. Because you can understand robots, like they're within understanding. Neural networks are getting a little hard, but they're still pretty easy to understand if you delve into them. But we're nowhere near being able to do that with human brains. So whether there are deterministic mechanisms driving your thoughts and your actions, who cares? You should be okay with both possibilities. If you believe in God and that He knows the future, you believe in determinism. Because there is no way to predict the future without laws that govern things, without a line to extrapolate from. And if you love science, then you should hope for more determinism and less indeterminism, or non-determinism, whatever it's called. But temporarily, whatever, like, we can never ever say that something is actually random. Ultimately, there could be some causal mechanism that enters the picture, but we will always have limitations in our understanding that will practically make things like they're not deterministic. So, I don't see why there's a big deal one way or the other. I just assume that everything is deterministic because I want it to be that way. And, like, I don't know. The way people think about this is so different from me, I really don't know what to think. So, like, why? I don't know. But you see this belief sometimes interacting with day-to-day things in a non-productive way the other way around. If someone believes things are too deterministic, like, whatever the truth is, if they think the universe is more deterministic than it really is, then what's the consequence of that? They'll just spend extra time on their their sailboat circling the same area trying to find the deterministic part. So they'll lose time trying to explore the universe. But if somebody thinks that things are not deterministic, at you know way more things aren't deterministic than really are, then there will be some laws that they will not even look for, because they, like, if they really believe it before knowing anything about it, like it seems like people do, then they will not act as if there could be something to be discovered. And I have a big problem with that. So, I think that we should act as if things are completely deterministic and that we have yet to discover the mechanisms. And I don't get the feeling that you should be depressed about that you're trapped in some cycle. What did you expect? Did you expect to, with the force of your free will, to transform the Earth into a duplicate of the planet Mars somehow, and then have two suns orbit the Earth instead of the Earth orbiting the sun, and like maybe turn the galaxy into a necklace that a cat wears? Like, why would you, like, I don't know what you're trying to do. Are you expecting to um like portal in or beam in some something that has no relation to the reality around you? Why would that matter? Why would that be great? Everything everything you do is within the realm of possibilities around you. So I don't get it. Um, yeah. So I hope I can understand people better. I used to hate this topic, but it just keeps coming back up again and again. So it must be interesting to people. And I thought that most people agreed on this, actually. Most scientific-minded people agreed. But I was surprised by Brett Weinstein opposing determinism so strongly. There can't be determinism because it would remove all the meaning. Does that mean that whatever is deterministic, there is no meaning there? So whatever portion of your life is deterministic, you find no meaning in that? Yeah, and they talked about movies. It's the same thing. The movie is deterministic. It's determined. Before you set foot in that theater, it has been planned from beginning to end. The meaningful part, speaking from the intuitive definition of meaning, the part that makes you feel emotion, because emotions govern future action, which is what meaning tells you. That part that you love comes from the fact that you don't know what happened yet. Behind the scenes, it's determined. But, yeah. So I don't know why you feel like all pleasure is sucked out of life if things are deterministic. For me, it's the opposite. So, yeah. Okay, bye.